This is the Globe Haul LT, and it's the first full-size cargo e-bike Specialized has produced. We previously tested the short tail or ST version of the bike, and to this day it's one of the best performing e-bikes we've tested. So the only logical question is, does this long tail model live up to the record set by the Haul ST? Let's take a ride and find out. Welcome to Electric Bike Report, and thanks for joining me today. My name is John, and I'll be your host for this review of the Haul LT, but I've got a couple quick requests before we jump into things. So first, in case you haven't been here before, we are known for our extremely detailed reviews centered around real-world performance testing. So if you're looking for the best e-bike reviews on YouTube, please make sure you're subscribed to our channel. And second, we put a huge amount of work into every one of our reviews, so if we're able to help you find a great bike, please help us out in return by using our affiliate link in the video description when you make your purchase. Using that link won't affect your cost, but it will help us to keep making these reviews, so we really appreciate the support. Business aside though, let's get into the Globe Haul LT and talk about a few highlights that really stood out to me. Starting off with its carrying capacity, this bike has one of the highest total payload limits we've seen at 441 pounds, which includes the rider, and then up to 176 pounds on the MIK-compatible cargo rack. This is compatible with a range of accessories for carrying cargo with basket options and either soft or hard shell panniers, and it can carry up to 2 passengers with seat pads, footboards, a handrail attachment, and more. The second main point to mention is that this bike really needs a powerful motor to back up that massive payload capacity, and Specialized absolutely delivered on that front. The LT is outfitted with a custom-tuned 700-watt rear hub motor with a torque sensor, and we'll get into the details later in our test sections, but trust me when I say that this is straight up one of the most capable motors we've tested for speed, climbing ability, and moving extra weight. It's also really adaptable, so it can make the bike feel extremely natural to pedal like an analog bike, but it can also feel like a total powerhouse. Finally, I want to mention that this bike felt extremely comfortable to ride, and it also has one of the widest rider height ranges we've seen from a single frame size. Specialized built in a telescoping stem and a dual telescoping seat post so that the bike could comfortably and realistically fit riders from 4'5" up to 6'4". Not only is that great for families that might want or need to share the bike, but it's also a testament to some really impressive engineering, as most bikes struggle to fit half that range. To wrap up this section, let's do a quick run through of the LT's specs. The bike has a removable UL2271 certified battery mounted between its top tube and down tube, and that has 772 watt-hours of capacity, as well as an IPX7 waterproof rating. There's a 9-speed drivetrain with a 50-tooth chainring, a KMC chain, a micro-shift derailleur, and an 11 to 36-tooth cassette from Sunrace. For brakes, there's a 4-piston hydraulic disc system from Tektro with big ol' 203mm rotors, and that is the T535 model, which is e-bike rated. This bike has a bunch of custom components, including its center-mounted kickstand, its plastic platform pedals, and its body geometry comfort gel saddle, but there's also the integrated 1500 lumen headlight and a 50 lumen tail light, as well as the alloy fenders and the 20-inch by 3.5-inch tan wall Carless Whisper Reflect knobby tires. Up in the cockpit, there's a set of 700mm wide handlebars with 80mm of rise and a comfortable 12-degree back sweep. The bike has ribbed slip-on rubber grips. The bike's display, which includes a control panel, is on the left handlebar, and then there's a trigger-style shifter on the right bar along with a bell. The Globe Haul LT ships as a Class 3 e-bike with pedal assist up to 28 miles per hour, and it doesn't include a throttle, but one can be added at purchase. The bike weighs a hefty 91.5 pounds, including its roughly 9-pound battery. The single frame size comes only in this color, which is called Gloss White Mountains. And finally, it's worth mentioning that the frame has a lifetime warranty and the electrical system is warranted for 2 years. But that should cover everything, so let's get into the fun stuff and see how this bike's performance stacks up. This bike knocked it out of the park in our brake test. We determined its average stopping distance by pedaling up to 20 miles per hour and applying the brakes at a marked line. And then our tester for this one was Griffin, and he did 3 of these tests where he measured the distance it took him to come to a complete stop, and then we calculated an average of just 16 feet and 5 inches based on his results. This is currently the shortest stopping distance of any full-size cargo e-bike we've tested. The short-tail Globe Haul ST had a result of 15 feet 9 inches, but it was definitely helped out by its shorter wheelbase. The average for long-tail bikes we've tested is currently 19 feet and 10 inches, so the Globe Haul LT did better by nearly 3.5 feet. We attribute those great results to the bike's brake system. Many of the other cargo bikes we've reviewed had effective but fairly basic 2-piston hydraulic disc brakes. The Volans or T535 model is a 4-piston system, so it applies more surface area from its brake pads to its rotors. But on top of that, this system uses larger and thicker than average rotors, which are able to dissipate heat faster than those on most of the other cargo bikes we've used for comparison. Bottom line, you'd be hard pressed to find a cargo bike with a more effective brake system and better performance. It really doesn't get much better than this, so we're giving Globe Haul LT 2 very solid thumbs up here. Next up is our speed test, which I performed on this bike. There were 2 goals for this test. First, to make sure the Globe Haul could reach its advertised maximum speed of 28 miles per hour, and then second, to determine its speed profile by pedaling in each of its 5 pedal assist settings with consistent effort and then recording my maximum speed. We didn't get to do a throttle acceleration test like we usually do on this one since our test bike didn't include the optional throttle module, but again, that's something that you can add. Anyway, let's go see how my test went, and we can dig into the data back here in the studio afterward. All right, we are here for a speed test on the Haul LT. Starting off with no pedal assist, and we're going right around 9.5 miles per hour. Yeah, pretty comfortably. Maybe up towards 10, but yeah, maybe a little closer to 9.5. Let's go up to PAS 1. Wow, okay, so the motor engaged really quickly, very smoothly, and really quietly. I don't know if you can hear that. I feel like I'm hearing the tires more than the motor, but you know, pretty minimal amount of power here, but it is making the ride easier and more comfortable. It feels really good, honestly. We're going up to about 12 miles per hour, maybe a little above. Let's go up to PAS 2. And I'm gonna try to keep, you know, the same level of effort here so we can really see those differences in power. Nice little step up here to, well, climbing a little bit yet, but let's say maybe around 15 miles per hour. Okay. Again, feels really good. Let's go up to PAS 3. Shift up a couple gears. Okay, so there's definitely a more noticeable increase in power here. Like, we definitely jumped up with a lot more behind the ride here. So we've got right around 19 miles per hour, 19 and a half, actually maybe up toward 20 at times. But yeah, again, feels great. We're definitely moving here. Let's go up to PAS 4. Okay, another nice little step up there. I mean, we're definitely, you know, pardon the pun, but hauling it now for sure. Let's see, 23.5 miles per hour or so. I mean, I'm not really putting a whole lot of effort in at this point, honestly. This is super easy. We're up to, well, let's get around this bend, but 24.5 looks like pretty consistently. Let's go up to PAS 5, see what's left in the tank. All right, definitely picking up. Looks like we're gonna hit that class 3 limit. I am having to like pedal a little faster to stay engaged here. So a little ghost pedal-y, but not too bad. And we are kind of right at 28 and maybe a little above, yeah. 28.3 looks like about the max. So, okay, yeah, we'll call that our speed test. To recap all the numbers from the test, I started off at 9.7 miles per hour with no pedal assist, but then hit 12.1 miles per hour in PAS1, 15 in PAS2, 19.5 in PAS3, 24.4 in PAS4, and then 28.3 miles per hour in PAS5. So there were definitely a few things to note there. So first, your results might be different since this bike has a torque sensor that allows the motor to respond to the rider's effort. Second, the Hall did reach its Class 3 top speed in PAS5, and it's actually possible to do that with more effort or faster pedaling in a lower assist level. That's one of the great things about most bikes with torque sensors. They're not really limited in speed except by your pedaling. Third, there seemed to be a noticeable jump in power between PAS2 and 3. We usually look for very even and consistent increases in speed between settings, and this bike did pretty well when looking at the graph of its data from this test, but going by feel, I started thinking of PAS1 and 2 to be really well suited to pedaling with no extra weight from cargo or passengers. And then we'll talk about this more later, but I tested the bike when it was pretty loaded down, and PAS3 felt like a really comfortable starting point, while PAS4 and 5 felt great when dealing with hills or particularly heavy loads when the bike is loaded down. I really liked this bike had power levels ranging from reserved and natural all the way up to effortless and blazing fast. It was super easy to ride around at 25 miles per hour or more without realizing it, just with normal pedaling, and I think there was really some magic there, as this bike made me feel a lot stronger and faster than I could ever be just on my own leg power. Overall, this bike did a great job, so that's another really solid 2 thumbs up. Next up, let's talk about our range test, which is actually 2 tests. In the first, we pedaled the Globe Hall LT in PAS5 until its battery died to get a minimum range, but then we recharged and did the same in PAS1 for a maximum range. We ended up with a bracket of 34.9 and, get this, 125.3 miles, which was over double the range that Specialized advertises for the bike. At the time of filming, that's also the longest distance we've seen from any cargo bike, and it's second on the list when looking at all the e-bikes we've ever tested, with a difference of less than half a mile. Now, as always, we did this test without cargo or passengers, so the 60 miles Specialized advertises might be more applicable when riding with extra weight, but compared to other cargo bikes we've tested, this one was pretty average in PAS5 and then way above average in PAS1. Other cargo bikes averaged about 68 miles with low assist, so this one went above and beyond by over 55 miles. There are a couple of factors that likely helped this bike get one of the best range test results we've ever seen. So first is battery capacity. We tested some bikes with the ability to carry dual batteries with a greater total capacity, but the LT's 772 watt-hour capacity is well above average for a single battery cargo bike. Second, most of the cargo bikes we've tested had cadence sensors, so they were always putting out a constant flow of power. The Hall's torque sensor allows its motor output to fluctuate and allows it to stretch out its charge over a greater distance. We're obviously pretty stoked about how well this bike did, so there's not really much more left to say. The LT will likely go at least as far as your average cargo bike, but depending on how you use it, it might go further than most other bikes out there. Next is our hill test, which I was pretty excited about considering that the Globe Hall ST kicked some serious tail in this one. So as always, our tester Justin did this test at a place called Hellhole Trail, which is a paved third of a mile path with a 12% average grade. I'll pass you over to see the test and get some thoughts from Justin in a moment.
All right, here we are on the Globe Hall LT, and I will tell you so far it feels like it's hauling me. It's going pretty darn fast up here. I'm not pedaling very hard. We're at about 18.4 miles, 17.2, 16, 15, 16.1, 15.9. Yeah, so bottom right about 15.9, that's pretty fast. Motor feels powerful. It's about average sound. Maybe a little high on the pitch. I'll let you listen to it here. Yeah, so it held above 16 through there, and it's just kind of cruising up this hill. Just on your left. So, yeah, this one feels like a barn burner. So I think this one's going to be pretty good. definitely gets you up. I'm going 20 miles an hour now, so we'll go check the tape and see what those results were.
As you saw, this bike had no trouble whatsoever. Justin finished the test in 1 minute and 1 second with a super fast average speed of 17.8 miles per hour. Here again, the LT did an excellent job. It finished 9 seconds faster than the cargo category average. It's second place when compared to all the cargo bikes we've tested, and it's tied for third place when looking at every e-bike we have ever pedaled at Hellhole. As Justin said, this motor feels especially powerful in PAS5. It has a pretty impressive 90 Newton meters of torque, so pedaling uphill was super easy. We spoke with a member of the development team at Specialized and learned that they custom tuned a motor to focus on overall power, speed, durability, and power delivery, and our test shows that their effort paid off. This bike looks awesome by the numbers, but it's also one of the easiest climbing experiences I've ever felt on an e-bike. I did my own testing at our secondary location called Pilot Hill. So I tested the bike first with no cargo, then with a 55-pound sandbag on the cargo rack, and then a third time with about an extra 75 pounds of cargo in the full 4 Cool Cave panniers that we have. So with no cargo, I pedaled up at 20 miles per hour in a minute flat. With 55 pounds of cargo, the bike felt almost the same. I made it up the hill in 1 minute and 5 seconds at 18.4 miles per hour, and then the full load of 130 pounds definitely slowed things down, but the bike still handled it really well. I finished that test in 1 minute and 27 seconds at 13.8 miles per hour. So all of that is to say that this bike is a beast, whether you're carrying a lot of cargo or not. You can always add a throttle to make getting uphill easier, but if you do decide to pedal, you're definitely not gonna have to work very hard. Okay, so we've talked a lot about performance stuff, but how does this bike feel to ride? There are a bunch of factors that play into that, including sizing and fit, comfort, motor engagement, the user interface, and more. So let's hit the bike paths one more time to go over some of the basics, and then I'll wrap things up with a few final thoughts back here. Let's go ahead and talk about ride quality on the LT. So of course, long-tail cargo bike here with I would say a mostly upright riding position, but that does depend on where you have things set. So there's a single frame size for this bike that has a massive range of accommodation for riders of different heights, starting at 4'5" and going up to 6'4". So we measured about 15 inches of saddle height adjustment with sort of a dual telescoping seat post, which is definitely one of the longest that we've seen there, and then a more standard but still pretty good 6 inches of handlebar height adjustment with the threaded quill type stem up here. So the adjustment for that is beneath this rubber cap. But yeah, I mean, honestly, feels great. Handles very well. Really like these wide handlebars. But I'm kind of getting off topic here. So in any way, the bike has no suspension. There's a rigid steel fork up front, which we tend to prefer on cargo bikes just because it means good stability and really crisp handling, especially if you are loaded down with weight. And you do get some cushion from the tires. You get some extra stability as well. Those are custom Carless Whisper tires, and they are 20 inches by 3.5 with a knobby tread pattern. So, you know, you're not 100% limited to pavement, but, you know, of course, keep in mind that you don't have a suspension here. So let's see, we have a 700 watt rear hub motor, very powerful. It has a torque sensor, so it's very sensitive and adaptive to how you pedal. I've just been riding in PAS1 because the power level is great, but if I bump up, you know, you can see if I really give it some gas, like, man, it takes off. A lot of fun, very responsive and very smooth, and yeah, just really good all around, honestly. So let's go ahead and bounce back to the studio and wrap things up. Just to reiterate, this bike's ability to fit riders with almost a full 2 feet of height difference is pretty insane, and we've got to give the development team at Specialized some serious kudos for pulling that off. In terms of the riding position, I thought the LT felt extremely comfortable and ergonomic. The bottom bracket is a little more forward than you find on many bikes, so you end up kind of pedaling out and down instead of just down. That took a little getting used to for me, but I actually ended up liking it. I was really impressed with those carless Whisper tires. I didn't do a whole lot of riding on unpaved surfaces with this bike, but when I did, the tires did way better than I was expecting, both in terms of grip and cushioning. I'm not sure the whisper part of the name is accurate, as they tended to squeal pretty loudly when braking, but I really liked that they had a combination of knobby and street tread for both low rolling resistance and great stability. One thing we haven't discussed a whole lot is the feel of the LT's torque sensor. Especially in PAS5, it's incredibly sensitive, which is good because it makes the bike feel super responsive, but it also takes some getting used to. The ride can feel a little jerky if you're not keeping a consistent cadence with even pressure, but A, it was a lot smoother in the lower assist settings, and B, I was able to adapt to it with just a couple of rides. Another thing to mention is the Globe app. It's pretty simple, and it can allow you to use your phone as a larger display if you have a phone mount. So it lets you turn the bike on and off and lock or unlock the electrical system. It lets you turn the lights on and off, and it shows some really important ride data like the battery charge percentage, your speed, and an estimated remaining range. I thought this app was nice to have, but I found myself wishing that I could get an accurate charge reading and turn off the lights without the app. The readout on the bike's display was a little tough for me to estimate range with. On the subject of the lights, I liked how bright the LT's lights were, but I was hoping to see functioning brake lights and maybe even turn signals, as both would help to increase the rider's overall safety on the road, and I think that's extra important when you're riding with kids. One last thing to talk about is handling, and I've got to say this bike felt a lot smaller than it is, at least when I was riding. It's definitely large and heavy, but it felt really nimble on the go, and most of the time it was easy to forget about how long it actually was. Overall, the Hall LT's ride quality is excellent. It's not a perfect bike, but it gets pretty darn close, and I think nearly everything about it felt like a step or two up from the norm. Coming back to my opening question of whether this bike would live up to the record-setting performance of the Globe Hall ST, it absolutely met our high hopes by knocking things out of the park in each and every one of our tests. The Hall LT is definitely on the more premium end of things when it comes to cargo bikes, with a price between $3,000 and $4,000, but if you're looking for the best of the best, it really doesn't get much better. The Hall LT proved to be really solid just as a bike, but also super capable as a cargo hauler because it's sturdy and powerful enough to carry a ton of extra weight. Specialized designed this bike not to replace a car, but to reduce the need for one, and we think that it absolutely lives up to that intent. Again, there's still a little room for improvement with things like the display and the lights, but otherwise this is a surprisingly rugged and versatile bike capable of meeting many different needs. It has low power settings that can give you a decent workout if you just want some exercise. It has high power settings if you need a little shot of adrenaline. It has a ton of space and a huge weight capacity for carrying kids, groceries, camping gear, or whatever else you might need to move around. And it really just rides like a dream. We give it a very solid 2 thumbs up across the board. If you want to take a closer look at the Globe Hall LT, you can head over to the Specialized website using one of the 2 links down in the description box. And again, please make sure to use that link if you make a purchase. There's another link down there that will take you to electricbikereport.com, where you can read our written review for this bike or check out any of our news posts or educational content. If you enjoyed this review, please consider subscribing and giving this video a like so YouTube knows to share our content with a wider audience. But again, thanks for taking a ride with me today. I'm John with Electric Bike Report, and this is the Specialized Globe Hall LT.